Welcome back to my garage. First of all, I want to say thank you to everybody who has been donating to our Bonneville, donating towards our Bonneville record attempt this year. Thank you. Thanks a bunch. And thank you to everybody else watching and supporting me. Since last time you saw me, I've turned 40. So you're looking at an old man now. I got a gift card, actually 2 gift cards. So with the gift cards, I've bought a bunch of hardware, as you do, and also a 12.1 tap, which I will need later on today. I'll show you. So last video we created a fuel shutoff valve from this fuel pressure regulator, and even though this would have worked perfectly fine, I wasn't happy about how unrefined it was and how not purpose-built it was. So Friday, I think it was Friday, I went out here and was just going to play around with some ideas, and I didn't bring the camera. Was just gonna like a couple of, as it was my birthday after all, and I was just gonna relax, and then things got out of hand, and I'll show you. And sorry about there not being any footage from making this thing. So I made this thing, this grenade looking thing. I'll pull it apart and show you the features. Pretty much the same functionality as this, but there's no membrane. This one has a membrane because it's meant for pressure to act on it, and I don't want that. So and it's also just a big bulky thing, unnecessary big bulky thing. So here there's an O-ring on the shaft here, and that seals the chamber from leaking, seals this shaft. And then there's an outlet here. And I turned a cone onto this piece, and there's another O-ring, and that seals against the cone here. So simple, like plunger style shutoff valve. So this should work very well. And then there's a hole for a pin here, and that's been pulled by the wire here. I'll show you. So the whole functionality here is there's a cable going through here connected to this, and when you yank on that cable, this gets pulled out. This one's a little bit too long. There's not much room here. I didn't want it to make it too long, and but I want to use like a separate pin versus just a cable itself, because it's harder. It's a spring steel thing. So but what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off this section, which will make it harder to insert, but you can cut it, like leave a little bit. And so I'll quickly do that, and then I'll show you how it'll work with a cable. So give me a second while I just snip off the end here. So here's the functionality. Now there's a piece of cable through here. So if you want to shut fuel off, if you fall off the bike, this will be connected to a tether, or the lever on the handlebars will be. Or you push the lever, and then this happens, and fuel is shut off. Simple as that. Fuel shut off, solved. A friend of mine said he probably has a couple of like commercial these in commercial versions, which I could borrow. So, but anyways, it's cool to make something yourself, and I think this is pretty cool. Okay, ignition triggers. So as I've talked about earlier, I'm not going to use an external ignition trigger wheel like you see on most engines. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mount a trigger like this. Here, it's not this one, this is an inductive thing, but I've ordered some hall sensors in the same size, same thread and size. And this will be mounted here. And they will be triggering off a notch in the crank web. In this way, there's no extra parts except for that trigger itself. So there's fewer parts, and there's no way for ignition timing to slip, because if ignition timing slips, then we have much bigger problems, because then the whole crank web has slipped. So a great way of doing it, I think. I can't take credit for this idea. It's that's how it's done in the Aprilia RSA, which the porting of the cylinder, the cylinder who's not here because it's sent to plating, but the porting is pretty much a copy of the RSA, because you know, not too many experimental things at once and all that, if you've been following for a while. Yeah, so how we're gonna do this, because I have this makeshift. This isn't super, like the accuracy here isn't super critical. So we're going to use my makeshift angle plate, and I'm going to mount the cylinder in the middle like this. It's barely enough. But barely enough is enough. My zeroing pin looks a bit weird. It's because there's some Loctite remnants on it. But I'm just going to visually center on the post here, on the casting. Like that. And now it's also level with the pin, fairly level. Okay, now just let her rip, and hopefully I'm gonna keep my hand on feed hold for when it's done, because then it might want to go like this and crash into this. So yeah, okay, crossing fingers. I stopped it because it was about to do what I feared it would do, diagonally do like this and crash into the tool. So gotta keep that in mind. But otherwise, success. So ideally in a production environment, this would be, I would swap this out for the next one and do all three at once. But I can't do the tapping here. I could, but then I had to be super careful with feeds and all that, and I won't risk it. Hopefully the sensor fits, and yes it does. Perfect. Perfect. So here's an example of how it might be a good idea to stop and think for a little bit sometimes. So all I've done here is I've flipped my setup, and in this way this won't hit this when it's retracting after the operations are done, because this moves away like this. And just, if you just stop and think, if I just stop and think sometimes. Okay, so second one, I'll bring you back when all three are done. That was the nerve-wracking part, because there's no foot pedal on. Actually, I should have. I think I'm gonna make a foot pedal for it. Just turn on and off the mains for it. So now there's a direct line of sight to this crank web through that hole. And then the ignition trigger sensor will sit like this, appropriately spaced from the crank, a millimeter, something like that. I can see we might have some problems here. Maybe I didn't think this through. Well, we'll make it work, but the trigger should have been here. That would have been better. Inside my head, that was supposed to be there. And I had a bunch of room for setting the trigger point. That's what I thought, but it's not. It's there, which could be a problem, but I think we can solve it. Now I'm gonna see, just roughly check the. So that's pretty much top dead center. I'm gonna make a mark here, then a corresponding mark there. We'll call that TDC. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45. Problem is these aluminium inserts here. Now they're not a problem really. I could actually just cut away and into those, and they won't. They're not ferrous metal, so that would work. But I'm not happy about cutting into the press fit. Then we would actually maybe have to remove one. I did some drawings in CAD to make this clearer, and with how the trigger is positioned, it should have been here. That's the problem. It's here, but it should have been here. So my brain didn't realize that until now. So I was thinking it was here, because my thinking was I had the whole interrupted half of the crank web to work with when placing that notch. So for some strange reason, I never caught this until now. So that's my top dead center mark there. And if I rotate the crank, and I gotta make sure I don't hit this. I don't want to get too close to the aluminium insert there. Don't want to break into the press fit area. So that's 35 degrees. Roughly 35 degrees. And if I want the notch centered there, that's about here. So here's the cutting plan. I'm going to use these aluminium bar pieces like that. I'm going to clamp it through the middle here. I'm just going to make sure there's room for a little axle stub. So this is not the most accurate setup and not the most rigid and all that, but it's good enough for making that trigger notch, because it's adjustable in software. So you set the ignition to trigger at the point you think it's triggering, and then you check it with a light and then adjust accordingly. Should work. So we're set up to do a 1 millimeter deep cut. I'm gonna do that 5 times to get down to depth, and then we're gonna step over, because now the groove will be 8 millimeters, and we're gonna step over 1 millimeter to each side, and then side mill the groove to width. Let's start at 100 millimeters per minute cutting speed, feed. See what happens. I'm just gonna use some WD-40 so we don't have the coolant splashing all over here. It's case hardened. Yeah, that's beautiful. Now we should be past the case hardening and it shouldn't throw sparks. Well, maybe not. Seemed fine. No. Oh. I think we got lucky there. I smacked the camera. Christ. Hopefully I didn't knock my anamorphic lens out of alignment here. Well, you saw what happened. We forgot to turn the spindle on. Oh man. But I didn't snap the tool. I did apply quite a lot of pressure though. Shit, that was lucky. So we made that cut a little bit too close to this, because now like the whole part here is isn't really, well, there's a tiny little sliver left, but it's not really supported. So that was too close to here. The surface finish is really good, but I'm wondering if I should switch out to a ball nose tool to have a radius in the bottom, a small one though, so it doesn't interfere with the triggering. So let's just deburr this slightly. We don't want to break that edge much. We just want to remove the burrs. So now we have this like template for how, so this is too far. And now we can go a little bit less, or hopefully this is within what we need, and then we can go a little bit back on the real thing. And you might be worried that this will throw everything out of balance and that will be a problem. And it will definitely cause some imbalance. But you got to remember, this is a single cylinder engine without a balance shaft, so it's inherently unbalanced regardless of what you do. And there's also a rotary valve here, so there's lots of imbalance going on, but the biggest imbalance of them all is that reciprocating piston, because you can't balance out the forces. You can try to balance, you can balance out the up and down forces completely, but then you'll have the worst case here where none of the side to side forces are balanced out. So there's always some imbalance, and this will cause some imbalance, but it might not make it worse. Might even make it better with that rotary valve there. So top dead center. So as I cut the notch a little bit too far to one side, it's now centered over the sensor at 45 degrees before top dead center. If we use the trailing edge, if we use the leading edge, then we're talking 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, between 30 and 35. So there should be leeway here. The reason I can't use this for testing is it's not one of those sensors with a magnet inside of it. So this can't detect ferrous metals. It can only detect magnetic fields. So that's the problem. That's why I'm not using this for testing purposes. We're also going to test with, because I don't think it has to be this wide. So we're also going to test on a different part of the crank here with a different geometry, like just a slot. Because if we can get away with a slot, that's harder for me to do, but better. Okay, I'm not in focus anymore because I switched out the diopter thing on the lens. So, but I'll just explain. Actually, I think we can get away with just drilling a hole. It's morning. I think a 12mm hole, bored hole, is better. I can't remember what I said last night. So there's the hole. That should work perfectly. And a hole like that we can drill in that position and even closer without problems, because there's material left on both sides, and so that shouldn't be a problem. So we're going to use very likely, as long as the sensor can trigger off that hole, and I'm pretty sure it can. It's just more professional looking too versus the notch. Professional looking, that's what we're going for. Pretend. Okay, we gotta wait for that sensor now. My hole sensors arrived. They're a little bit long, but perfectly usable. You might replace them with something shorter or different, but I know these are used as triggers in on cars for EFI and stuff, so they should be fine. Got the sensor hooked up to power and the signal wire with a pulled up. This should read 0 when there's metal present, and close to 5 like it's reading now when there's no metal present. And I was scared about the cutout here, and also the aluminium inserts, if those would interfere with the magnetic field, and they do, but I think we're good. As you can see, we're reading 0 now, even in the cutout area, and of course in the non-cutout area. And now the hole is getting closer, and it seems to trigger pretty much on center. So let's see here. There. So with the edge of the hole on the center line of the sensor, it triggers. So that's good to know. That's good. We can use that as our alignment baseline. Machining of the head and head insert is done at JLC CNC, so should be here in a few days. My design has studs like this. I can't show you, but they're protruding, might be longer ones, protruding from the cylinder through the head insert and then through the head. So we need to seal them off so it doesn't leak water. So the plan is to use copper washers, and I don't want to use those you know the nuts with a little dome on top. I want something longer, so I'm making ones. And how I'm doing that is I'm Loctiting in set screws in one end of these connecting nuts, or long nuts. I'm using this to butt up against the set screw to make it tight, make the air gaps smaller. Like that. I'll let these sit and cure. I think I want to put both halves together. But first I'm going to find top dead center again. The reason I'm putting both together is because so the crank don't flop around, because that might give us a bad reading. I'll thread this in. I want a 1.5mm gap That's the recommended, like in the middle of the range gap. And this is a 1mm thread pitch, so that means backing off, hitting the crank and then back off 1.5 turns. So that's 1 turn and a half. There's some conditioning going on inside of this sensor, because at the moment it says it doesn't see metal. It does, definitely does. I think it needs to see that notch before, and then it can decide what's metal and not. It seems kinda, I didn't really want something acting like that, but there. Okay, so there's the notch. We'll go back, and now we'll turn slowly until we see there, it registers the notch. And that's reading 29.3 degrees, which is very close to 30, which is what we set it for. So that's perfect. That is perfect. Could be 1, 2, 3 degrees off in either direction, but that we can adjust for in software. So that's perfect. Perfect notch location. Now this is aluminium, this is aluminium, and we could try to use some activator and some thread sealant or something like that to hold this in there. And we probably will, but I think in conjunction with that, I think I'm gonna turn up some bushings and have an O-ring seal. Then we'll epoxy the bushings to the sensors. This will kind of support them better, and also it'll be much easier to seal this good in that way. But this is all we had time for in this video though. So I'll start working on this tomorrow. LangTuning is on board. Sponsoring. So now Mitutoyo and LangTuning. Mitutoyo America. Mitutoyo America. And I'm talking to Mitutoyo Scandinavia, Thomas Hjerne, tomorrow. And thank you to everybody else who has been donating and stuff. I'm gonna make something for you, like some kind of a display thing, where everybody contributing will be acknowledged. Thank you, and see you next time.